In any field, the original is always valuable. Paintings, the Mona Lisa, it's one of one. If you're wondering who are you like I did, you're asking the wrong question. You're an original. The question is, who do you want to be? EcoFlix started as a product of my desire to feel like I was doing something useful after I practiced law. I used to take care of animals. I did a lot of work for animals, practicing law, and when I retired, I felt like I was no longer making a difference. With the power of film, with the reduction in wildlife filmmaking, there's no market for the wildlife filmmakers to even get their films out, and there's studios closing down all over the place, so there's no films being made. People are clamoring for film. Why don't I try and sort of pick up the concept of Love and Bananas, only not in the way that was made, make a sort of an entire NGO around the idea of making and supporting wildlife films.
It's an honor for us as Plan International to co-host and sponsor this year's NGO International Film Festival. It's an event which showcases films from around the globe and highlights real solutions to real-world problems.
Does anybody remember the 276 girls that were kidnapped from Chibok in Nigeria in 2014? That's when I founded my NGO. I had no idea where Chibok was, but I knew that 276 girls were stolen from their lives and would not have an opportunity to write their own stories. And so I became an organizer for Bring Back Our Girls.
We decided we are going to have all women jury members this year because these three themes are very intertwined, and we feel like women are best to see from their own lens. Let's see from their lens how we can resolve it. Through our festival, we would like to highlight the stories of people who have been affected by these issues, and most importantly, celebrate those who are working to address them.
When I started The Innocents, the idea was to communicate what it means to grow up in Israel. When I make the film, I do believe that it's going to make something, and I try to think how that's going to work and what's going to touch the people. I really think about my audience and believe in them. So, and I put a lot of love in the work, and I try to find a tone that is that will speak to people. And the films themselves, all the ones that I've done, the 4 feature lengths that I've done, I think they were able to penetrate people once they were seeing them.
Our minds have so much power. It's usually the hardest thing to quantify. I know when non-profits come in or filmmakers come in, they count the number of people whose lives have been changed. So they put up a building and say, now 5 people, or there's a hospital there, 100 people can now access. But when you transform people's minds, the change will be seen in a few years. But I believe the stories that should come are stories of hope. I believe young Africans need to have hope in a more amazing continent, and we can transform this continent if we see more positive stories.
The community where I come from, they are really underrepresented, looking at the kind of setup that they are living in. They are not really exposed to the different platforms where their voices can be amplified. And I believe when we use the film and festival like this, the issues that is affecting them in their community can be brought to light. But as of now, it's like something that ends within their community and setup.
I think that events like the NGO International Film Festival are really important. I'm a newcomer to this world. I usually evaluate Hollywood movies and watch feature films from around the world, not these impact films. So for me, it's been eye-opening to watch them, and I think they're really important. I think the themes here are really important. Education and food security and equality. So they're very important subjects, and the movies that are being made about these subjects are really important, and they can help inform communities. They can make a change, hopefully. So I think it has been amazing being a part of this festival.
There is no such thing as a bad film, actually, especially when it comes to human rights. When I see like a bad film artistically, it can like move me forwards, at least like topic-wise.
I assume that you're a student group. You know, all of you probably have phones and all of you have access to shoot something and to edit it yourself. As someone interested in advocacy, you have tremendous power to, even if it's roughly edited, if you're telling a strong story, it can be really effective.
I'm always in sort of a conflict on how to engage a bigger crowd and how to be sophisticated in the storytelling.
They're talking about Somalia in Nairobi, living in their nice houses in Muthaiga. They never went to Somalia. And they're talking about a response somewhere in Somalia that they've only known by the map, and there's not one Somali in the room. And usually not any black people in the room. And usually not any Africans in the room.
What would you say was the most memorable or striking scene from the movie as you watched?
For me, I appreciate the fact that you were able, such sensitive topic, you were able to address it from virtually the genres most applicable so that people can easily absorb and adapt to it.
As soon as I put the hijab on, people related to me differently, Westerners related to me differently. I know that I was probably perceived also with the strong voice I have before the hijab, and I continue to have after the hijab, plus the hijab. It's put me in this box, in this prison in the minds of just being a very radical human being. That level of focus about shutting out all this noise and what people care about, and the ability to be, I think, magnanimous and generous to people, regardless of their skin color, comes from my faith, nothing else. I have every right, I think, to be bitter for all the things I have experienced, but I think, I don't think bitterness or anger will help me at all in my journey in life, in this world, and in the afterworld.
As an Israeli, I'm not at a physical risk yet for what I do. The risks are different completely. They're not physical. It's more the professional risk. It's the risk of expressing your opinions in a way that will be completely unaccepted, to say the truth in the most clear way, despite that it's gonna hurt you.
It's just been incredible to see the festival grow from the first online version with a range of quality of films, and the quality is just so much better this year than any year previous. It's exciting.
Over 30% of our water use and agricultural lands go directly towards food waste. What inspired me, obviously, understanding that if I'm fortunate enough to get an extra sandwich at a restaurant, and I have to travel for work the next day and that extra sandwich is there, combining that knowledge with the fact that whether it's a neighbor, a friend, a fellow student who could, or someone in the public who could get access to that sandwich, it does multiple things. Whether or not I could afford a meal or they could afford a meal, it stops that sandwich from going into the trash.
I've always liked animals, but I had no idea that they needed help until I was older. And then I started to realize that even the poorest people can talk. Many successful people started out with nothing and they found a way. And that doesn't make it easy for anybody who starts out with nothing, and I don't mean to minimize that. But animals can't speak our language, and they have absolutely no way to help themselves. And if we're not killing them and eating them, we're ignoring them or throwing them into cages and letting them die in pain. And all over the world, we're taking over more and more land, so wildlife has no place to go.
Now, my question is, in your journey, have you encountered a conflict between human and wildlife, and how did you deal with it, or how was your approach in the issue?
Elephants, starting with the biggest example, in many countries, Thailand, Cambodia, Africa. When there is a problem in nature, for example, something explodes, and it happens, like Yellowstone, they have natural geysers and things. When something erupts and things are emitted, and they are not good for the environment, there are natural ways that the environment compensates. It's how the Earth has been here so long. It checks and balances the good and the bad. When you have an ecosystem with predators and prey, it's not an accident that there are very few predators compared to the number of prey. They keep the prey species down, and if you let them run amok, there are too many of them, they eat all the grass. When they eat all the grass, the trees fail. When the trees fail, the streams are blocked. There's all kinds of problems that arise from the fact that the balance was disrupted.
If elimination of food waste is like the main goal, it's like absolutely brilliant. But you also mentioned like feeding the hungry, and I was just wondering, like, unfortunately in the world, I can imagine that there are people who aren't hungry but are stingy, who crowd out the hungry by joining your app and just saying, I want to get as much free food as I can so I don't have to go to the supermarket and spend. Is there any solution to that, or is it just something you've got to live with?
Well, you have a network of providers that provide to that village, and they actually get funding from the city for that. So you just fed the people who actually need it because you list to that village, and they're the only ones that can claim it because we're implementing Hungry Verified.
We struggle to pool communities' knowledge in terms of aligning it to solution. Community knowledge is always not considered as a typical knowledge. Typical knowledge is scientific knowledge. Community knowledge is called indigenous knowledge, local knowledge. It has different terminologies. But they're also a very valuable part of that knowledge that has real relevance to solution. And people still have more trust in that knowledge. Until you mobilize that knowledge and bring it to where the solution makers, as they call themselves, until you do that, then you still miss a huge population of people who need this kind of service. And I think you have a big opportunity for doing that.
So the film festival is all around celebrating solutions. Okay, and the films that have been showing throughout the entire week, you know, we don't call them films, we call them solutions.
They say a problem shared is half solved. A solution shared, we will have no problems.
Solving these issues, solving these problems is not impossible. It requires commitment and execution. Using technology, the Hungry app provides you the means and the ease of that commitment and the opportunity for seamless execution.
Every place I go, communities identify what we have been talking about as the problems that they face, the reasons that they're going hungry. They are the ones telling us, even if we talk about it in the boardrooms. And that, of course, we all know is the climate crisis, is the economic crisis that we're facing, and in many places, conflict.
If I'm encountering a problem now, perhaps someone has solved it, encountered the same problem and they've solved it and they've documented it. Why can't we learn from others? And that's the power of storytelling, like Renee had mentioned, because we need to start learning from others regardless of the border.
From the depth of my heart, I believe that my responsibility as a diplomat is to open doors, to provide platform for people to meet, to listen to each other, and to try to understand each other's perspective and way of life and way of conducting things. And that's something I have learned in Africa, the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because you are, we are because you are. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be with you tonight. Thank you.
So everyone
who's present here. Thank you guys all for coming. It's a good thing that we can lend a hand and extend a hand of support to help ourselves in all the situations that we're going through in the world today.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we close this conference today, let us live inspired to take action and boldly tell the stories that need to be heard. I encourage our youth with an interest in film to take advantage of government programs such as Talanta Hela to convert our local memoirs and life stories into films. I urge the NGO International Film Festival and the Kenya Film Commission to collaborate and build knowledge-sharing platforms that will develop the Kenyan film industry to global standards. It is now my pleasure to officially close the NGO International Film Festival 2023 here in Nairobi. May the power of film continue to inspire change and action across the globe. With those few remarks, thank you very much for your kind attention, and may God bless you.